everybody, and thank you guys for checking out Criterion Watch. I'm your host, Jonathan Moody, and today we have a special guest here. Welcome, Joe Turek. How you doing, Joe?
Hey, I'm doing great. Looking forward to this one tonight.
Trying to find my I have the you talk about it real quick, and I'm gonna grab the
I got to see it for the first time. I had not seen it before, so this was the first time I got to see it, and uh, I'm glad I did. This is sort of same thing happened a few episodes back with Paul giving me one to watch sort of out of the blue, and now I've gotten it again with another one, first time viewing. So this is great.
Definitely. And you know what? I hadn't seen it in a while, and I just rewatched it today, actually. I should have probably started last night or something at least,
Hmm.
but I was like, screw it, I'm going to do it today. And then I got too crazy and busy and junk, of course. And then I was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, but I did watch it. I got to see all 2 hours of it. And I absolutely adored this movie still. But let's show this off. Here's the Alfred Hitchcock Foreign Correspondent Blu-ray case, and from Criterion. So you can see that
Hmm.
nice little Criterion logo up there. Then you turn around, they got some amazing special features, and I'll read some of them off to you. So it's a new 2K digital restoration with uncompressed. Dear Lord, I'm mono or roll soundtrack. So mono soundtrack. New piece in the film's special effects by visual effects expert Craig Barron. Hollywood propaganda in World War II. A new interview with writer Mark Harris. Interview with director Alfred Hitchcock from a 1972 episode of the Dick Cavett Show, which I watched briefly. Radio adaptation of the film from 1946, including starring Joseph Cotton. Have you heard the story of Wartime Rumors, a 1942 Life magazine photo drama by Hitchcock, and trailer plus an essay by film scholar James Nimmer or whatever. And that's this. There's a little right here.
Yeah. So it's got some good stuff in it for so I guess it's 80 years old and all that, but yeah, I'd be interested that propaganda clip that you talked about. You said there's supposed to be
Yeah.
something on the Hollywood and propaganda, because I know that was going straight into a time period with Hollywood that was really uh, controversial, if you will. And this movie itself had some elements that could really be controversial. Really
Yeah.
surprised me with the type of movie it was.
Well, right. And I think that's what I started realizing more about Hitchcock. And we'll have a big announcement at the end of this thing. But there was the thing I've noticed when I watch Hitchcock movies these days is like I like almost feel like he's a little ahead of his time, Like
Mhm.
I was
Absolutely.
surprised of a lot of the stuff that he did, because like back then that was some stuff that like nobody would dare do. Like nobody probably would have
Hmm.
tackled this project exactly the way he did it.
Hmm.
Especially tackling a lot of the war stuff, I
Hmm.
mean, so the story, let me see if it says it in the back, what it's about. In 1940, Hitchcock made an official transition from British film industry to Hollywood, and it was quite a year. His first two American movies, Rebecca and For Correspondent, were both nominated for the Best Picture Oscar. Rebecca was our last year was our Criterion Watch too.
That
Uh,
one Best Picture.
yeah, though Rebecca prevailed, Foreign Correspondent is the more quintessential Hitch film, a full-throttle espionage thriller starring Joel McCrea as a green Yank reporter sent to Europe to get the scoop on the imminent war. It's wall-to-wall witty repartee, head-spinning plot twists, brilliantly mounted suspense set pieces, and astonishing set of special effects. Foreign Correspondent deserves to be mentioned alongside the 39 Steps and North by Northwest as one of the master's greatest adventures. I agree. So I also just rewatched 39 Steps recently, and I've seen North by Northwest way too much. And they both have those both have similar stuff that
Hmm.
was it for Correspondent does. Both involve like espionage, but involve somebody kind of like the wrong man gets involved. Like
Hmm.
Joel McRae is just this
Yeah.
American reporter who's gone to England just to cover the war and ends up kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
becoming
And it,
what go ahead.
I was just gonna say it was. I saw the preview for it right before I watched it, but other than that, I had no. And I mean, I read a brief synopsis, but I tried to steer clear of watching or reading too much on it, so just sort of take it in. And I think this is a movie that has multiple viewings necessary because there's so much going on. Um,
And we'll talk about some of the stuff. I mean, there's so much going on, we can't probably cover it all. But
mhm.
my like it's got like probably like 3 or 4 scenes in it that are just phenomenal in some way or another. I'll just say one of my favorite characters in it is what's the guy's name? Is Edmund, the guy who played in Miracle on 34th Street, played the
Oh, he played Chris Kringle. Yeah.
he played Chris Kringle, Edmund Gwynn.
Yes. Yes. Santa.
He was fantastic because I didn't even recognize him. Like I saw the guy, I was like, I feel like I've seen that guy in older movies somewhere, but I had no
Hmm.
idea that was Chris Kringle, and he was phenomenal in it. His scene of him trying to push, Joel McRae off the was it the cathedral or whatever, and then ends up, I guess they don't show any of that, which I think is a Hitchcock thing, like, I mean, I guess nowadays you'd have to show it sort of more, but like back then I liked that it went from him trying to push him to all of a
Hmm.
sudden like cut to like, oh my God, there's somebody falling and you can't see who it is, to all of a sudden, you find out through the paper sort of what happened. And then
Yeah.
the guy says, well, if I was lucky, I just moved out of the way at that particular moment.
He said he thought he heard the elevator door open, or something was going on that caught his attention. But yeah, that whole sequence where he was being where he got pushed in front of the bus and all that, and he's like, well, I'm trying to save you, so instead of pulling you back because you would have fell forward, I pushed you. So he tried to play it off and it worked at the moment, but then when they went up to the top of the building and all, and it was just that back and forth, the banter between him and just sort of watching him trying to, okay, is everybody going to leave this floor so I can sort of have my moment to toss him over, or what's going to happen? That was just great.
It
Yeah.
was so I want to talk about that. So that's a Hitchcock thing for sure because he was the master of suspense, right? So what made
Hmm.
this really good is that the audience knows that this guy that's with him is not really his bodyguard, is the guy that's basically
Hmm.
sent to kill him. So when you're watching the movie, and you see the push, you're like, oh, that's him gonna, trying to murder him. Then it doesn't, thankfully the bus moves out of the way or whatever, and he survives. And then he's like, wow, I got pushed. And he was like, yeah, I pushed you, but I pushed you to save you, blah, blah, blah. Right. Because
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that guy's ballsy, like telling him straight up he pushed him. But he had like something
Hmm.
right, right there and there to talk about. Then the thing is when they're in the car and he's like in the taxi and he's like, oh, there's people behind us following us. There's nobody behind them following them. You can obviously tell there's nobody there. It's like, oh, we're going to have to lose them. We're going to have to lose them. So like all that stuff, you're like going, uh-oh, what is he going to do? How is he going to do it? Then he says, let's go to the top of that cathedral right there or whatever. And I'm like, uh-oh, that's where he's going to do it, but how? And then you see all those kids around, and I mean,
Yeah.
that scene just took my breath away just rewatching it.
And that one kid, he put the one kid over the edge. I was like, whoa, that's just kind of like, what's going on here?
I
And then the hat
know.
fell. that the hat fell off, and I think that was sort of that happened repeatedly through the film. Hats either missing or flying off and stuff like that, and all. So I think that was sort of tied up in there too. But just the beauty of that scene, and just us knowing what is really happening, but as it's unfolding with Huntley, or John, was it John Jones? What was happening to him as he was sort of unraveling and stuff like that. And that, like you said, that's something Hitchcock has always done really good. I mean, letting you see something before it happens. It's just something. It was great. And another scene that really caught. I mean, obviously the last sequence is something that has to be really expounded on. I'm sure with the plane and all that.
The plane sequence, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but another one that I really liked was the windmill.
The windmill.
Towards it was probably about a half hour or so in, when you thought Van Meer was in there, and
he was.
He was. It wasn't the imposter, if you will, that got shot, but the way he deduced that, because the way the blades was flying, it was going back. He's like, hey, there's the symbol going on here and stuff like that. So, but when he went in there, it was just the approach that Hitchcock used with the entire going up the steps, and he was right behind them and stuff like that. It was just so tense and so suspenseful. I mean, I absolutely really love that scene. But this movie in itself, all around, had that.
And you mentioned the airplane scene, which I don't think was as suspenseful as it was just terrifying to see. You know, it wasn't like, because there was no real suspense. They were getting shot and they were falling down. Like they were gonna crash into the water. I think it was a terrifying portrayal, and I don't know. I've never looked it up or anything, but I wonder if it was the first movie to actually show like what a plane crash would look like. You know, like for real. You know.
Yeah, I think that it seemed almost like kind of grand, like the big action finale, if you will. And and I know nowadays in movies it's commonplace to have something like that, with the big action finale and stuff like that. But this movie in itself, it had constant. I mean, there was the car chases, there was the stuff at the top of when he was going to get pushed over the edge. There was the stuff that happened at the windmill. There was the shooting on the steps of the imposter. I mean, which I think was brilliantly done, with all the umbrellas out and stuff like that, just going up the steps. It was just shot beautifully.
Or like
and on top. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
I was gonna say another sequence was when he climbs out of the was a Hotel Europe, and he's sitting there walking along the sill, trying to get away from the two cops, if you will, that was going after him. I mean, it just. There was so much suspense, action, if you will, through this movie, and that's what caught me off guard, because I wasn't expecting all that, and that was a very, very well received on my part.
It was that, and also it was a movie that kept your interest, I'm sure, from the very beginning because in the very beginning you get to meet John Jones, aka Huntley Haverstock, I guess was his name, and he was. Which one was the real name? I'm trying to.
John Jones was the real name, and they had to come up with a new name. And remember, they painted the HH on his suitcase over the JJ.
Yeah.
Because he had to become that new name, if you will, and stuff. Which I guess they needed that to be more, because John Jones is kind of. Seemingly it's a very normal name, so they wanted to come up with something a little bit more.
They also wanted to give him a pen name, so that when he wrote stories or whatever, it wouldn't get traced back to him necessarily, I don't think. Though, I mean, at the end of it, they and we forgot to mention that really great scene with him being on the phone with the newspaper people, and then putting the phone up so that they could hear him, and then the guy is telling him all this stuff, and all of a sudden they hear the phone. Like, it was like, oh, I was talking to my uncle. Sorry, I forgot I had my uncle on. Right, whatever, right. And I just thought that was very smart and very funny, and
but who could? But I mean, how many? That's just the magic that Hitchcock has, is he can make even relaying a message in that way very suspenseful. It's like, oh, is he going to see what's going on? Are they going to be able to get the message out? And what's gonna is it all gonna play out all right? And there's a war that's on the horizon and stuff like that. It's just, I mean, something that can be really shot so simply actually plays so much bigger.
Well, you know what? There's another thing that Hitchcock does that sort of irks me a little bit.
What's
Um,
that?
I guess he doesn't have time to like have these characters go through like years or whatever together, but generally they get married very fucking quick, or at least they get engaged quickly, or whatever. Uh, there's the movie Suspicion. Rebecca had it. Now this, and I'm sure there's others where where all of a sudden the people meet and they're like, oh, by the way, do you want to be my wife? Like it's like, dude, get to know the person first a little bit. Like, good God. I don't know if that was really
Yeah,
like
I'm wondering.
back in that day.
That's that. What you're saying there is what I was just thinking of. Going back 80 years, I was like, was it a little different people relationally wise that they would fall in love, if you will, quicker and it just happen like night and day? Or is it something that maybe film wise they portrayed it a little differently, because obviously film has changed so much over 80 years that maybe that's okay for them to do that then, because that was the norm at the time.
Maybe that might have
I'm
been.
not sure.
But a lot of those movies, Rebecca, For Correspondent, and Suspicion, were about around the same time. So maybe that was just a thing he liked to do in his movies, is have these characters kind of meet and then just fall in love real freaking quickly and then marry real quickly, because it was easier than saying, all right, so a few years have passed and they're starting to, you know what I mean? Because a lot of these
Hmm.
characters, like, they fall in love under like crazy situations, like Lorraine Day and Joel McCrea falling in love in Foreign Correspondent very freaking quickly, because they are both sort of, you know, and like,
And isn't Lorraine Day, wasn't she only like 19 or 20 when she made this? I mean, I was looking at the actors and actresses up through this film, because it was like, to be honest, I had not seen them in really much of anything else. But they have done a ton of, like, I was looking up Joel McCrea, and he has done a lot of westerns. He did a lot of westerns
yeah,
after
he's
this
a
through the
Western
years.
actor.
Yeah, so I mean, and then I looked through a few of the other ones, and I was like, the one that really caught my attention was the one who played Scott Folliot, the other male,
Foley, like,
Folliot,
I know,
two
Jesus.
F's lower, take away the capital F, if
All
you will.
right.
But he was the voice of Shere Khan the tiger in Jungle Book,
Nice.
the Disney Jungle Book, which
But
to
that was
me is
like
like one
sort
of
of
my
the
favorite.
villain, right? Like he was the villain,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
He's
awesome.
very, and to me that's like one of my favorite Disney
Disney.
the
Yeah.
animated movies growing up as a boy and stuff like that. It's sort of there, and so I saw that and I was like, ooh, great. But then I was like, I was reading some of the other ones. They was it Albert Basserman who played Van Meer, that
Mhm.
he couldn't really even speak English very well, and he had to phonetically do some of the. That's how he learned the words,
Oh,
the
wow.
lines and stuff like that. And I'm just like, wow, if that's, I mean, so, but I mean, I didn't really look up. I didn't really see much of stuff that they had done that really. Um, so I don't know if this was just a one-off for a lot of these that did something good, or they had really great careers. And there's a lot of other stuff out there for me to get into now.
I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So, it was, but and then I looked at, was it Herbert Marshall? He was in the 1958 version of The Fly, and I
Yes, I
was
saw
like,
that
okay,
too. That's awesome.
yeah. So yeah, so seeing some of those, it's like, okay, well, there's this, but they all had like tons of credits. So it was, I mean, it wasn't like this was a one-off for him. It was just, I mean, but
They've
but yeah,
all
I mean,
done something big. But yeah, George Sanders, who played Scott, he had or Scotty, I think at one point, what's her name, kept calling him that. He was, you said was in the Jungle Book, and he's definitely got amazing voice for, I really
yeah.
liked his voice in this movie, and he was also in Rebecca with that Alfred Hitchcock did. So, I mean,
See, I saw Rebecca like when I was in like high school, so it's been like 30 years. So
they just
um,
remade it, right?
I saw something on Netflix with said Rebecca. Is it a remake of that?
Well, it's
Really?
a new adaptation
Oh,
of it.
okay.
Yeah, like I don't know
Yeah.
if they like if they kept with everything or or if it's completely sort of a new thing and they're just keeping the name. But yeah, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, being so long since I've seen Rebecca, it might be better that I watch this new one just to see it. But then, because if I watch the old one, I mean, watch the original, I'm sure someone will be like, okay, well, this other one can't be worth anything comparatively speaking. But um, I don't know. I'm interested in seeing it, the original Rebecca again now because being the same year and all, see how Hitchcock, because this was when he first came to Hollywood and stuff like that. He signed that 7-year deal or whatever it was with that producer, with the producer. What was the producer's name? David Selznick.
David
And
Selznick, yeah,
yeah,
the Gone
yeah.
with
So
the Wind producer.
I know, right? Yeah, movie I saw earlier this year for the first time ever.
Me
But I
too.
guess that's a
Me too. I
well,
was not.
yeah. What's
I honestly, and I'm. People are gonna probably go crazy about this. I was not a fan. I was like, really, this movie is just way too long, and there's just not. It's just it didn't stick out for me enough. But I told Kim that, and she did not. She was not happy. That's one of her favorite movies.
well,
You know.
Well, my wife, she watched it. She's seen it through the years like that. So she watched it with me for the first time. So she was getting gauging my reactions throughout everything. And the second half of the movie, I mean, I don't think spoilers really matter for the purpose of us talking this one, but being that it's 80 years old. But the second half of the movie, I'm sitting there, I'm like, damn it, Rhett, go away. Leave Scarlett alone. I mean, Scarlett's a waste. I was like, she's not even worth the time. And then at the
Right.
end, when that line came in, I was like, thank God. To me, it's the perfect ending. I was
Well,
like, yes.
and it's so funny because I always thought that was a romantic line, you know.
So did I.
I, I thought that was the most like it was supposed to be a romantic line, and then I'm like, wait, so he left her, like oh,
That's what I was
like
saying. So like second half of the movie, I'm sitting there doing the camera. I'm like, where's the romance? I was like, I don't like her. I want her to go away. I want her to kick rock somewhere.
I yeah, I don't know. That's something once again that we could talk to Kim about because she's really so like that's one of her favorite movies,
Mhm.
and
Oh.
Paul hates
Well,
it.
production wise, it was. Oh, Paul hates it. I'd say
Yeah.
production wise, I thought it was a beautiful, well made film. I don't think
Oh
I'm
yeah.
on the same page with you on some of the aspects of it, but I mean, I went into it expecting a big romance, and it didn't go that route at all, and I was,
Yeah, I was
um,
disappointed by that, but I
yeah.
mean,
So that's why I was, but
you know, I thought it
yeah.
was
So
okay, but
yeah,
like,
but that was only been what a year before this one then. So, but back with Foreign Correspondent, I mean, I can I've seen a couple of the other movies that was up for Best Picture in 1940, even recently, like Grapes of Wrath and stuff like that, which was
I need to
which
see
was
that.
great. Yeah, I saw that in school, and then
I've seen that
there was a
like
couple
years ago, but
Philadelphia.
I haven't seen it since. Like, I think I saw it in
Yeah,
school too.
Philadelphia Story was that year, and Great Detective or Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin film.
Which
So
is
some of those are
Criterion.
really
There you
good.
go, Criterion. I think
There you go.
Philadelphia Story may be Criterion too. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Um,
but I mean,
I think
Rebecca
they're all
once. I
on
mean,
like HBO Max, I think too, or something. You know.
I seen Philadelphia Story on there, and I think Great Dictator's on there as well. Uh, yeah, so I'm that's why I'm pleasantly getting to go see some of these older movies and seeing this one that way as well. I mean, I'm glad I did, and I'm glad you brought this one up because I mean, it's to me, it's just great Hitchcock film.
Well, it's a movie that I don't think you would normally go out to like watch, or whatever.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of people have probably thought that when they were first watching this movie is like, this wasn't a movie like this isn't North by Northwest. This isn't Psycho. This isn't one of the popular movies. This is, a movie that I feel like if it didn't get a Criterion release, not many people would be talking about it at all. First time I saw it was not on Criterion, by the way. First time I saw it, I rented it from the library on a DVD,
hmm
and because I was just getting into Hitchcock, and I was like, how many Hitchcock movies do they have at the library? So I just rented a shit ton of them and just started watching them. And I think if I'm correct, you got to keep the movies for like a month or something, or whatever. So I just ran a bunch of them and just watched them when I could. And Foreign Correspondent was like the first one I watched of the ones, and I was like, this is what the hell just happened, like. This is not like this has a lot of comedy. It starts with them saying, bring this guy up here, right? And the guy gets up there and he's like, the first thing he's saying is like,
he's doing what he's doing those cutting the papers and stuff like that up, making designs and stuff
yeah,
like
he's
that.
making designs. He's not even paying attention. Like he's not working.
Like, who's this idiot?
I know. And then he comes up there and he's like, they're like, do you know anything about the war or the crisis that's going on? He goes, what crisis? Like, this guy's perfect, right? And they're like, the war. And it's like, yeah, but I don't really know too much about it. And it was like, perfect. You're hired. We're going to bring you in there so you can cover it. So because you don't know a damn thing about it, and you're not going to have, he's not going to have like here or there, he's not going to have his own personal agenda with it. He's going to go in there completely free of like, it would be like me, because I have nothing to do with like, I don't do politics. But if somebody were like, do you know anything about this war that's going on? I'd be like, there's a war going on. That's all I know. And they'd be like, okay, good, perfect. You're hired. We're going to have you go in there and you're going to like just start talking to people about what's going on. And did you notice when he was there, he didn't know what the fuck was going on. So he asked people and try to gauge hey, do you know what's going on? Basically, all right, let me talk to this guy who can't speak English and see if I can get information from him. And, it was,
yeah. Then when he saw Carol, it was just sort of like, whoa.
I know. He fell in love hard. He made that guy go away. He was like, go talk to this guy about, what is it? What are those Scottish kilts? Go talk to this guy about kilts, right? He sends the guy away. And I thought that was so funny. And I was like, see, this is what I like about this movie. I think the thing that got me hooked originally, that kept me hooked again, is the comedy in the film. It is, and Hitchcock always says that he will not do a script if it doesn't have humor in it, his type of humor.
Yeah.
I've told my friend this, that he actually said this on a set of a movie. This woman comes up to him and says, Hitchcock, which is my best side, right? Talking about her face, right? And he looks over and goes, you're sitting on it, my dear. Driest wit ever, but like, that is so fucked up. He could, if you were directing movies today, Hitchcock would not be directing movies today the way he directed them or the way he said things, I don't believe, because we live in a society right now that completely hates. If you say one little thing about something, it's going on social media. Hitchcock would have been crucified for half the shit he did.
Yeah, and doesn't I believe Hitchcock's style, doesn't he like to shoot his scripts are always they usually don't deviate from the script much at all. It's supposedly like very straight, is very strict and all forward. And I guess that could still work today, but it's a lot of it was kind of interesting doing that with this film because the war in the world was changing as they were making the film. So it was like and I believe they had to alter the ending a little bit because the war was, right. It was like the war was ready to happen and stuff like that. So there was a lot of conflict in the world and all, but interweaving that with the humor, like you were just talking about, and then the suspense, the action. This to me was a movie that would fit so well in the last 10, 20 years, even if it was made in today's time. In whatever context it is, but it had so many different things going for it. It wasn't like a one note film, and I guess that's why it's gotten the Criterion. But go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with you completely, 100%. Like it would have been, it could be remade today. It just wouldn't be necessarily the same story. There would, it wouldn't cover that war particularly unless they did a throwback, like tribute to it or something. But then, I mean, there's no need to do that. I mean, if you're going to update something, you're going to update it to present time and stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, there could still be stuff going on. Like, I mean, especially with the government, like knowing too much information these days can get you fucking killed,
Yeah.
So it's a scary thing that, like, even back then it was just as bad as it is now. And Americans got to watch when they go places that they're not, familiar with. If you don't know the people there, you're not, whatever, you're kind of lucky, just be careful, like, but all in all,
I think during that and during that time, one thing that'd be really different now is being a member of the press then was a little bit more prestigious. Now it's the media and press is more like it's so skewered into opinions and stuff like that. So that it'd be a whole different context of looking at that. So to your point about having different time periods and stuff like that, yeah, it would have to be definitely adapted to the present world, if you will.
Yeah, and it would be a little change, but like, I mean, I think you could still do stuff like, the planes getting shot down maybe, or some of the windmill scene is just amazing. I mean, I don't even know if I'd want anybody to ever like recreate that, because I think Hitchcock did such a great job showing the windmill going from one side and then changing to the other when the plane was supposed to land, and I think that was just, oh my God, that was amazing. And he did it so well.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of gosh, what else is there? The scene when they kill the imposter on the steps with I love the way that they had the cameraman had the camera and then they had the gun right next on. He was hooked it up to the side, like sort of the assassin, and the way that sort of played off and stuff like that. And I mean, did this imposter know that he was just going to? I mean, I was interested to know really where that was all, because they said there was an imposter standing in, but it's like I'm wondering. I'm sure there's a whole different angle on what was happening there. Why was he standing in?
Yeah.
So, but that wasn't Van Meer. So I was like, that was a curve. But I mean, at its core of a film, it was like they were trying to get Van Meer's character to say the 27th clause or whatever it was for the line for the treaty. And I mean, they were interrogating him. They were doing some brutal interrogation of it. Then it just sort of all expounded on that. Another scene that really, when they were towards the end, when the one guy steps forward to do the rough Van Meer up a little bit more, and they didn't change Hitchcock didn't change the camera angle. He stayed on Folliot and the aunt, and it's just watching their expressions and hearing Van Meer scream. It was just like, oh, how brutal. And it's like you could feel the pain without even seeing anything. And that was just because he did it so well. That shot was just perfect. But we can go in all different directions with this, and it's just great.
Well, you don't need to see the stuff. And I feel like we live in a culture right now that's like, film is, a visual medium. You need to see everything. And I feel like sometimes, like you look at movies like Jaws, not seeing the shark is scarier sometimes than seeing the shark. Now, granted, I'm not saying that a horror film or something should not have the creature or something in it at all, and you're gonna, I mean, to be Steven Spielberg, to be Alfred Hitchcock, takes a lot of talent, as opposed to somebody who just tries to make a movie that has no, nothing at all, and then goes, oh well, Jaws didn't show the thing. Well, he did show the thing, just didn't show the shark the whole time, because it kept breaking. But it also happened to be the best thing that happened to the movie.
For Jaws.
Yeah.
Another thing that comes up with Foreign Correspondent, and you talked about with the humor and all that too, it's that Hitchcock always has his little cameo, and how he had his cameo in this one.
I forgot.
It was about 10 to 15 minutes into the film, 12, 13, something like that. He the two of John is walking out of the it's right after he lost his hat and he left his hat in the taxi. They went into the building, and then when they came back out and they were talking, he just walks by and he's holding the paper. And he just walks by, and then it stops on him just there looking at his paper real quick, and then he proceeds on. And it's just knowing that I'm sure there's a whole probably big to do about what all his little cameos and stuff like that. But it's just that he, to me, I find it humorous. It's just like, okay, he's going to throw himself in there real quick. But I'm always like, where's it at? Where's it at? Where's it at? And it's like, if it's not there, I'm like, did I miss it?
So in the movie Lifeboat, his cameo was on the newspaper, because they're on a lifeboat, right? The whole movie's on a lifeboat, right? So you can't really, like, what could you do with Hitchcock for a cameo? So his original thought was he was going to float in the water, like as a dead body in the water. But he was afraid he was going to sink. So he wouldn't be, that was his line. Then, but then he decided he had lost 100 pounds. He had actually lost 100 pounds. And people were very surprised, like, how did you go from 300 pounds to 200 pounds? So he created a fake diet supplement or whatever called Reducto. And he had it as the guy's reading the newspaper and sees the before and after of Hitchcock, and it says Reducto. And then people are actually calling his office asking where they can get this Reducto, because all these fat people were wanting to lose weight.
See, that's the humor. He in this one he had it was like darker hair and stuff like that. But yeah, so it's interesting how he can, even in an isolated environment, he could sort of tie himself in there. I mean, he did it. Another one that really quickly came to mind, something I watched recently, was Rear Window. When he was repairing something or something in one of the rooms across the way or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just, to me, I find that funny because it doesn't overwhelm the film by any stretch. It's just sort of you can just
it's
sort
like,
of
where's
dismiss
Waldo, but it's like, where's Hitchcock?
Exactly.
And
it's something it's just an added little piece, a little nugget on top of everything else that makes his film so enjoyable.
Stan Lee did that, but Stan Lee took it a little further and would like actually have lines and everything.
Yeah.
Hitchcock never had lines. Hitchcock just walked by his film. Film set. So I mean, I think that's funny.
Yeah.
But we are about to getting ready out of time. That was good. We talked a good amount about this project, this film, and I really, really enjoyed it. But
yeah, when you brought it up, I was like Hitchcock. I was like, okay, I'll do it. And I was like, Foreign Correspondent, I never really know that one. So this actually was a good thing for you. It was able to really show off the Criterion element of it. For me, it was just actually being introduced to another Hitchcock film, which was really enjoyable.
Well, once again, you can buy it on at like Barnes and Noble or a bunch of different other places as a Blu-ray, or you can watch on HBO Max. It's on HBO Max. Or you can, I'm sure there's many other ways to watch it if you want to check it out. But we have this big announcement that we're making for the podcast stuff. So G. Larry Butler and I have created a podcast called Hooked on Hitchcock. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the films that don't really get a lot of attention. We won't do Foreign Correspondent for a while because we just did this for Criterion Watch or Rebecca. But we will eventually get to those as well. But we want to mainly talk about the ones that didn't get as much attention, like our first episode, which will air in I think the first Friday in November, we just recorded it. It's called it's the movie Suspicion. So that's the Cary Grant movie. So if I were you guys, I would check that out. It's going to be on indiefilmcafe.podbean.com. So check out Hooked on Hitchcock starting the first Friday. And I'm announcing this right here. Then in an hour from when this gets released on Friday, we are actually going to post about it and get the word out about it. So
I'm sure you guys are going to have a good time talking about his films.
We will. We originally going to have it because we had him come over and visit, but I think what we're going to do is from now on, he's going to rent it and then watch it and then review it at his house, and we'll do it through Zoom. because it's just easier that way.
Yeah.
It's easier than him
Naturally.
coming over and all that fun stuff. So, but yeah, all in all, it was fun. I mean, we had a great time. I'm hoping it comes out great, but you never know with these things. You just have fun with it and enjoy it, and see how it goes. But that's about it on that. I know Indie Film Cafe will have a lot of other shit going on. This is the second to last Criterion Watch. Got one more Paul in November, then in yeah, after then we're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna concentrate on all the other stuff we've got going on, because we got a few things going on, right? So we got to concentrate on that. But I'm really happy because 2 seasons of Criterion Watch, we've tackled a lot of these things. I think also it'll give Paul a little bit of a break so he can catch up buying movies for Criterion Watch, because he doesn't really have that many, honestly. So he needs to go buy some more through like the Barnes and Noble sales. And there's maybe one supposed to be in October, November or something. So maybe one coming up. I don't know. If there is one, I might end up buying one too. At least one new Criterion Watch. But we'll see how it goes, So, but anyway, I just wanted to say thank you, Joe. Just stick after. I'll chat with you after. And everybody, thank you guys so much. Look out for Hooked on Hitchcock. And also join us for more stuff coming up. So we got a lot to talk about, that's happening. And with that, I'll say bye, guys.
Bye.